If you've ever bought a refurbished computer or phone, you know there is a whole marketplace for used tech. This isn't just a good deal for the customer, but it also helps curb waste that can lead to soil contamination, non-potable water, and dangerous living conditions.
You're listening to Found, TechCrunch's podcast that brings you the stories behind the startups. And today we're talking to Thibaud Hug de Larauze from BackMarket, a global marketplace for refurbished devices. I'm Becca Skutak, and here to talk about what happens to your phone once you trade it in is
Dominic Midori-Davis. And of course, before we get into our conversation, we have our two truths and a lie, so listen carefully to see which one of these statements isn't true. Is it that Thibaud had his personal phone number on the original site to make it seem more legitimate? That the number of people choosing to buy refurbished phones is up 10% since 2014? Or that the company raised its Series A in the US?
Ooh, listeners, you will have to keep going through the episode to figure out which one of these things is true and which one is the lie. But before we dive into our conversation with Thibaud, a quick reminder to rate and review the show. You can do that wherever you are already listening to this episode, so super quick and easy, and we really appreciate it. And now, here's our conversation with Thibaud. Hey Thibaud, how's it going?
Hi Becca, I'm great, thank you. How are you?
I am doing well, cannot complain. But I'm glad you are here today on the show. Why don't you tell us a little bit about BackMarket?
So BackMarket is the leading marketplace for our global electronic refurbished products. It's been founded in 2015 in France, expanded rapidly over Europe and in the US. It now operates in 18 markets. So Europe, the US, but also Japan, South Korea, and Australia. Our mission is to extend the lifespan of electronic products by enabling people to easily make them last longer through circularity and repair. Voila, that's pretty much it.
And I'm curious, what got you interested in that space to begin with?
So if I look back 12 years ago, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur because I grew up with my dad being one, my grandfather being one, my uncle. So I was like surrounded by entrepreneurs. So I wanted to create my own company. But I wanted also to create something that made sense, that I had a positive impact. Then I happened to meet the marketplace business while doing my first job, and also the refurbished business, which was literally like, how do you give a second life and third life to electronic products? And this is where the idea came from. I thought, oh, this is genius. There are those professional people that can bring electronics back to life and send them back with a proper warranty and a great user experience. So I think they found a way to extend the lifespan of tech product. I just need to let people know that it exists, right? And create that one-stop shop, that one marketplace to advertise for it and to make people switch from buying new to buying refurbished. And this is 12 years ago, actually.
And I'm curious what it was like going from having that idea to actually starting to set the business up, because I know where I live in Brooklyn, it's like if you walk down the main street, there's like 5 different places that advertise they can fix your phone for you, or you can go in and buy refurbished phones there. And I know right to repair laws have changed a lot since you guys would have gotten this started. What was it like actually going from having that idea? Did you hire people who already were working in refurbishing these parts? Like, what was it like actually getting this idea off the ground?
So at the very beginning, it was my first job. This is where I meet my co-founder and CTO Q. I happened to visit this industry in the southwest of France, middle of the countryside. I happened to witness what refurbishing smartphones was and how clean and how safe that was. And I was like, there is such a big gap and a big difference between what those guys are doing and what you can actually see in random shops in the streets in Paris at the time. And I was like, I need to bring those top quality products to the people, right? It's what it needs because it's safe, it's trustworthy. And this is what I think, was missing at the time to switch from buying new to buying refurbished, because the trust gap was too big for people. They were like, I might save, $300 and $400, but is it going to work? Is it going to be reliable? And what happens if it doesn't work anymore? I became obsessed by the customer journey and by digging, maybe for 6 months or so with Q, my co-founder, was like, is this a real opportunity? And we scrapped the whole internet in France first, then a bit further away in Europe, and then in the US. And we thought, okay, there is not that one-stop shop brand that is built to create trust, basically, for people to refer to if they don't want to buy new. So yes, you have the small shops, but they are not answering to the need at scale, that it's changing the way people consume tech product. This deserves a lot of attention. It deserves a scalable answer. And this is how the idea of BackMarket a marketplace dedicated to refurbished product came. It couldn't be a shop somewhere in the real offline world because that would have been having a too small of an impact.
And so what does the process of refurbishing technology look like? Because I honestly have no idea. Like, what happens when someone gives you their old phone and stuff?
So what happens, like, for example, if you're in the US and just trade in through one of the three telcos, or let's say Verizon, you're just upgrading to the new one, you're giving your old one within the shop, then those millions of product, they're being sold to refurbishers. So you have to picture thousands of phones landing in small warehouses where you have a bunch of technicians operating with computers. They have softwares to assess the quality of the device. And this is, the first step. They just plug in all the devices that they receive. They check in if they turn on, if the functionality works. Then they make sure all the data is erased. And then according to the testing, they will put the device in certain areas of the facility. Some devices just need a very deep cleaning because they are in perfect state. They go through cleaning and then they go to repackaging and then they're put in storage and then sold online. Some product deserves more. They deserve a change of battery. They deserve a change of cracked screen or all those kind of operations that are pretty basic on tech products that we use and that we refurbish. And then at the end of the day, it goes through QA again if they went through a repair. Like another testing software is testing the device. If it goes through, then it gets in the warehouse and being listed and sold online.
Interesting. So I'm curious, going back to, again, launching the business from the ground up, once you guys realized this was the opportunity, what did you do next? Did you hire refurbishers? Did you guys try to learn how to do it yourself? Are there existing networks of refurbishers you could contract to? Like, what does that side of it look like?
Yeah, well, at the very beginning, during my first job, I was helping 4 refurbishing factories of smartphones to sell their product through generalist marketplaces. So literally like selling through Amazon, Walmart, and all those online. I could see it was capping. The growth was capped to a certain point because they were fighting under the used category and everybody was like listing like their old stuff without repairing or doing anything of the process that I've just described. When we decided we wanted to create a safe place to put the emphasis on refurbishment and refurbished electronics only, not used, we thought that we needed to make it a marketplace. We had zero money in the bank with Q, my co-founder, so we needed to build it ourselves. But I also had the advantage of knowing those 4 refurbishing factories. So I just pitched them the idea, like, we're going to launch that marketplace. It's going to be a safe place for you to sell your refurbished product. I'm going to sell them much better than what you already have at the distribution channel because all the existing ones, they're made to sell new products, basically, and you're just being sold and they're used. So nobody knows what they are buying when they purchase through those platforms. So I was very happy that they said, yes, okay, I'm going to list on your platform and BackMarket. So we could benefit from the inventories of those people, solve the problem, like a marketplace problem, which is very typical as the chicken and the egg.
Right.
You need the offers if you want to get the demand. And so that was solving the egg problem. And then we could go to market with our platform and try to find a match on the demand.
Definitely. I know you guys have been able to grow significantly since you guys got started. So maybe if you want to talk about that and maybe why you think this resonated so much with potential consumers and what did growth look like?
Well, it's the beauty, I think, of a marketplace model is that you don't have a limit to the scale. You can do 1 order a day. You can do 1 million, 10 million. It's just very powerful network effect on the offer side, on the demand side. They are actually feeding each other. So when we started, maybe we're doing for the first 2 months, like 1 or 2 sales a day, which was already big for us. It meant that people were finding what they wanted. They were seeing value for money when they were coming to BackMarket already. And now we have more than 13 million people since then that trusted us and purchased the refurbished products through BackMarket across 18 countries. So that grew very rapidly. But I think it's the value prop has been improved, of course, but it's still the same at the core. We're offering an alternative to people. Everybody needs tech, basically, to connect to one another. We are talking through our computers right now with some mics and headsets, etc. Right? So you want to connect for work. You want to connect with your family. You need tech product, right? How do we make that a bit cleaner and easier for people to adopt an alternative to new product? And this is why we've created BackMarket, to create that very easy alternative where they can consume product that cost way less than the new product You're saving an average 50% when you choose refurbished over new. Where you can be safe, there is a 1-year warranty period. Where there are strong SLAs when something happens to the device within the warranty period, we cover you. And it's BackMarket that handles the customer care. We do the customer care ourselves to make sure it goes fast and smooth. And all this is really in order to make it a no-brainer, basically, to people. There should be no more factory reason to buy new. And in order to achieve that goal, we really need to be offering a top quality experience for people to consume refurbished tech. This is what we've been obsessed about for the past 10 years. And I think this is what we're going to be obsessed about for the next 10 years.
And thinking of going from just having a couple of sales a day to where you guys have been able to scale to now, what changed? Did it change quickly? Did it grow over time? Or was there a moment where it's like, all of a sudden, everyone is finding out about us. Now we're growing rapidly. Like, what changed from those first few months?
I'll say first people within BackMarket. From 3 co-founders to 700 backmakers today across the globe, that's been what's the most striking to me. In terms of growth and customers growing, I don't remember a point where it was exploding. We really had traction since the beginning. Maybe it accelerated after the first year when we started to do some paid marketing. At the beginning, it was only organic. We didn't have any money. We didn't fundraise. So we were very scrappy, listing on Craigslist. I had my phone number displayed on the website so people could call me if they had any questions, etc. And going from that period to the period where you can use all the Google stack and kind of pay some media ads. Then we started TV 2 years after, so we could broadcast the value prop of BackMarket to much larger audiences. Maybe those 2 moments where we realized, okay, wow, this is taking off to a next level. But aside of that, since the beginning, it's been pretty much all the time about growth.
Wait, you had your phone number on the website?
Yes, at the beginning I did because...
Was it your personal phone number?
Yes, was my cell. I was, like any question, you call me. And I was listing products on Craigslist or Le Bon Coin in France, which is the same. And I was saying like, okay, I'm selling you an iPhone 5C. At the very beginning, that was the bestseller. And people are calling me and then thought like, I'm going to sell my old iPhone 5D. But I was saying, no, so actually it's refurbished. You have to go to the website. And I was pitching like 50 times a day. And then I had people coming in the website and, refurbished. What does it mean? The world itself didn't exist in the dictionary. So they were like, is it a scam? And so I thought having my phone number to help them pitch them in real life, the story was helping. And I did a lot of sales on the phone at the beginning.
Wow. And I'm curious because the space that you guys are operating in, selling these refurbished goods, has changed a lot since you guys got started. Especially, I know over here in the US, we've had a lot of changes to things like right to repair laws, ways where people could kind of get their phones fixed easier or have access to that kind of stuff. How did that impact you guys as you were growing? Was that a positive? Did it mean more people could become refurbishers that you would work with? Was it a negative? More people were fixing phones on their own? How did those right to repair laws impact you guys as you were growing over the last 12 years?
So first, right to repair should be a right to anybody, If you buy tech, it's very expensive. Like you should be able to fix it if something is not working anymore, like a single component. Batteries everywhere, it gets used, it drains over time. So you should be able to fix it wherever you are. I think that should be a very basic right that we should have as citizens. Not just part of the right to repair, but we are really, really like 200% fighting for right to repair every day at BackMarket. I can tell you in the US and in Europe, it's moving, but it's really early days still. Today, while I'm speaking to you, you cannot purchase a spare part from a manufacturer on your own, If you are out of, let's say, warranty, most of the time it expires within a year or 2 years for some manufacturers. But then, like, if you need to change the battery or something, you call them and they'll say, oh, sorry, I can do that for a very, very expensive price, or I cannot do it. You have to figure out on your own what to do. And that's not okay. So the law has changed in Europe over the past 6 months, and now it's going to come into motion in June 2025. But manufacturers of smartphones, tablets, and computers, they'll be forced to sell the spare parts to anybody who wants to fix it. And I think that's major movement. That's major improvement. It's what happened in the automobile and the car industry 30 years ago. Manufacturers of cars were forced to enable people to access to spare parts to fix their car on their own. The reality is that I think people don't do it on their own because it's too hard. I cannot fix my phone on my own. I mean,
Yeah, me neither.
I could try, but I would break so many things on the way with the, very small screws, and there is a process to be respected, etc. It needs to be very thorough. What I think it would empower the repair networks, but also the refurbishers to do a better job, and it will make their life much easier, basically. So that's very early days. Even in the US, only a few states have moved so far. We need all of them.
Yeah, and I also wanted to ask you about expansion, because knowing that you guys are in different countries now and expanded over your life cycle, I'm curious how you knew when it was the right time to expand into these different markets, how that process went. We talk to companies all the time who try to expand out of the US and then end up retreating. What was it like choosing the markets to go into next, and how did you know when the timing was right?
Well, that's a very hard question. I think, to be honest, you never know. But we needed to move fast. I remember when a very early conversation I had with a first business angel that invested in BackMarket. He created a company in France, was called Little Market, and got acquired by Etsy. He told me, that's a good exit, but I lost in a way because we went too slow on international expansion, and we almost created the company at the same time of Etsy. And at the end of the day, they were so much bigger than us that there was no point to fight anymore. They succeeded and became the leader. And he was repeating all the time, like, you have a unique opportunity. You are creating a marketplace, a new market, a new vertical. It doesn't exist. You haven't copied any US companies or Chinese companies or someone else that does the same outside. So if you want to build that one-stop shop brand for refurbished tech, then you should go and test international markets very fast and don't wait too much. And thanks to this advice, we moved pretty fast. First in Europe. That was pretty easy because we are mostly selling smartphones and tablets at the very beginning. So it was easy to drop ship from one country to another because the land of Europe is the same size as the US almost. But those countries, once they are connected, like border-wise, it's not that much of a transportation. So we could test very easily without having to spend millions. And actually, we launched 5 countries at the time with less than 500K on the bank account.
Oh, wow.
But that was enough to see if the value proposition was resonating with the people from outside of France. And we had no idea, honestly. We did some math. We looked at the penetration of electronic product, penetration of e-commerce, penetration of used versus new. And that was pretty much it. And then the US came pretty fast after. So once the European success was there, we fundraised our Series A, which was 7 million at the time. We looked at the same thing in the US. Nobody was there, between Craigslist and eBay and Amazon or Best Buy. It was like new retailers and peer-to-peer kind of platforms. So we thought, okay, there's the same opportunity. Let's go there. Let's try. That was for sure more costly. We tried to be as smart as possible when doing that, but I'm glad we did because now the US is our second largest market and it's definitely still the biggest opportunity for us.
I'm curious if there are any markets you guys tried to expand in where it just didn't work. Have you run into that where there just wasn't a big enough demand?
So you have different successes when you enter markets. Some markets are growing insanely fast, some are less. And you don't always have the answer, to be completely honest. After a while, is it the copy? Is it the tone of voice? Is it the layout of the logo? Whatever. You don't really know because to us, it's the same value prop that we're offering to the people. I think you should be stubborn for a certain period and look at how it grows and look at the first cohorts of customers that you acquire. Do they repeat? Do they come back? And if they do, in a good way that makes it worth economically speaking, I think you should keep on trying to grow the business as much as possible because it means it's resonating with the people of the country you are addressing. That's always been our approach.
More from this conversation right after a quick break.
You kind of mentioned a little bit about the fundraising and raising the Series A. What was it like fundraising for a company like this? Kind of from where the initial investment came in to, I guess, all the way up to raising a Series A.
So first investment was really business angels. We were very small, less than 1 year old company. So launched in November 2014, and the fundraise was realized in May 2015. So 7 months after. And that was mostly like first metrics, but very early, a lot of questions because we were talking to very smart people who had successful businesses online in Europe. And so they knew the tricks, they knew some traps, they knew the many things that we didn't knew at the time. Then we built a lot with the money they've given us, and they invested in the company early days to grow the business as much as possible and test the international expansion, and had the first kind of metrics to show that the traction that we were seeing outside of France was actually following kind of the same patterns as the one that we've observed in our first market. And this is what made the Series A easier or made it work.
Did early investors immediately get what you were trying to do, or was there still a little bit of pushback?
No. There's been a lot of pushback, seed round, Series A. Most of the investors, they like to have benchmarks. They like to kind of see like this is exactly like this business. So it should translate into the same numbers within the next 3 to 5 to 10 years. But the truth is that we were creating a vertical dedicated to refurbished product that didn't exist anywhere. And so they couldn't as easily project us as they could do for some, regular SaaS companies. It was creating some level of anxiety for investors to, well, there is no other marketplace for refurbished devices. How, what does the future look like for them? But, I'm happy we went through this process and made it to where we are today.
I know that you guys have raised quite a bit of funding since then, because we always talk to founders, and founders always have interesting things to say about why they raised the amount of money that they did, whether it's big or small or anything that falls in between. So I'm definitely curious, why did it make sense for you guys to take on so much capital as you've been building the company?
It made sense for the company to raise what we raised because we've always been in a mode of trying to build a global leader. I like to refer to Airbnb as an example. They created a different way of traveling. They created an alternative to booking a hotel room, but they have succeeded in building a global approach, basically. And the topic that we're addressing, which is how do we switch people from buying new tech to buying refurbished tech because it's much better for their wallets, it's much better for the environment, is a bit the same. It's creating a new way of consuming, a new way of interacting with your tech product. And that doesn't work if you do it only locally. It's back to the question of why didn't you start with a store offline? Small is beautiful and can be very an art in many ways. You can really take good care of your small shops, and I really love those shops. But if you want to have a big impact at scale and move like big masses, then you really need to have a global approach. And this is why we've raised so much capital. It's because of the size of the opportunity we're addressing. We know international expansion costs money. We know that we need to keep on investing in order to grow the category, keep on improving the quality. So it's really like frictionless for the user to interact with us. That's capital needs.
Switching gears just a little bit, we wanted to talk to you about the sustainability aspect of the company and why reducing e-waste and why refurbishing is so important.
I love this question, I think more than any other. So just to give you some context, as a species, we're emitting 36 billion tons of CO2 every year. E-waste is the fastest growing waste stream. So both of the problems are very bad because we need to get to net zero CO2 emissions. We don't have a choice. We need to get there as fast as possible. So 2030, 2050, there are debates. Well, we need to run in order to make it a good planet, basically, to be left to the next generation. And so the production of tech products, a hardware like the smartphones and the computer I'm using right now, is responsible for 2 billion CO2 emissions every year. Because to create what we're using every day, those laptops, those tech products, those smartphones, etc., you need to extract a lot of raw materials. To create one single smartphone, you need to extract 250 kilograms of raw materials. That's a lot of energy. That's a lot of soil pumping just to build one smartphone. So the fact of enabling people to purchase them refurbished and not new saves 92% of the CO2 emission. Because what we do is we make the product last longer, basically, by doing so. And so there are governmental studies in Europe that have been published 3 years ago that are showing the impact of refurbished versus new. It varies, between 88 and 92% savings each time you choose refurbished over new. And so if we successfully do that at scale, and for now, refurbished is only 15% of the consumption of refurbished tech as a whole. But if we make it as the car industry shifted, car industry was 30 years ago was only 10% of vehicles were sold used. Today in the US and in Europe, it's 75%. So there's been a massive shift towards used car first. We want to do that for the tech space and electronic product. And if we do that, then we will save maybe not the 2 billion, but 1.5 billion of CO2 emission, which is close to 2% of global CO2 emissions worldwide. So that would be our contribution to the fight that we're all addressing.
So what is the percentage of people who buy refurbished tech now?
15%.
15. Oh, wow.
Yes, 15.
Oh,
yes.
that's not a lot.
So lots of room to grow.
That's not a lot. Yeah, that we need to grow. But you know what? When we started BackMarket, it was less than 5. So it tripled over the past 10 years. Now the question is, how do we triple it, 10x it as fast as possible to fast forward this change, which is needed for the reason I just described, which is CO2 emission. And I think another stat that you might find interesting is that I picked that one from Al Gore, who is one of our investors. Electronic waste is only 3% of the waste in America, but it represents 70% of the soil contamination. Because the raw materials, the lithium, the components and the materials that are within our tech product, they're not designed to be absorbed by Earth or the oceans. And that creates terrible chemistry.
Oh, wow. So it's like not breaking down in the soil?
No, it's infusing, in the soil, and then you will end up drinking some water that you don't want to drink, or you don't want your relative to drink it. It will create disease. It will create bad things. You really want to protect the environment and keep it clean so we can, keep drinking safe water, being safe when we consume our vegetables or fruits.
Oh, wow. That's kind of scary. Wait, as you were talking, I was thinking about the impact this has on other countries, because where are we getting the hardware from?
So most of the hardware is being assembled and the extractions of the materials are mostly made in Asia. China is a big one. Africa is a big source as well. Lithium mining is definitely a big one. Cobalt mining is definitely another one. But most of the extractions are not going on in the US or in Europe. But it's one planet. It's not two. So extractions are happening in other countries, They are assembled for 95% of it in China. And then they're being distributed everywhere on the globe. And what we like to make a pragmatic answer to that is, okay, we need to make product last longer. So let's make them circulate and last much longer so people don't get to consume them again and over again every 2 years or so. That's really the answer that BackMarket brings by building a trustworthy experience and building access to those alternative products, basically to the customers and the citizens. We touch rapidly on the second solution, but repair needs to be a big part of it as well. It should be easy for citizens to fix their stuff. This is why right to repair is super important. There are too many people dumping their phones, dumping their computers or whatever they have because one single component is not working anymore. And it's too hard to find a solution to fix it, convenient one. That doesn't take like 2 days of work or transportation, or it's too costly, And this needs to be broken and it needs to be super easy and almost common for people.
And we're pretty much right at time. So I wanted to ask you one last question, which is that you guys have been around for 12 years now. You've raised all this venture money. You've garnered these large, over $1 billion valuation. What is next for BackMarket?
So we've been created almost 10 years ago, in November 2014. We never changed our mission, which is really to enable product to last longer through circularity and repair. And we're still obsessed about that. And I measure the impact of our work through the number of people choosing refurbished over new. It's growing 3x if I take a look back 10 years ago and now. And for me, the next step is to grow that as much as possible. So let's 3x again. And next time we speak, hopefully it's less than 10 years, right? I want to flip the table. I want really to have people saying like, it's the new normal to consume refurbished first. If I don't have option, I'll go buy new. But like for cars, you just go for use first because you have the better experience. You're saving money. It's more efficient. same service, same warranty, better for the environment. It's just top of mind. So my next step is to get there.
Well, cool. Well, thanks so much for taking the time and coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
And that was our conversation with Thibaud. Dom, what was the lie?
The lie was that they raised a Series A in the US. They did not. They actually raised it in France.
Yes, and that does make sense based on the origin of the company, but they have raised quite a bit of money since then from quite a number of sources. So it would not be super surprising if they were able to kind of raise some of that money from outside of France to begin with.
Yeah, especially given the venture ecosystem in France. I mean, like, it's on the come up, right? But if he said, like, oh, I came to the US and raised all this money, I would say, yeah, that also could have happened. I think it inevitably did, right? Or is it still just all France?
Yeah, no, they've expanded. But you are right, I guess, actually, now that I think about it. Like, when they raised this round, that was definitely still a time where you would find, like, European founders coming to the US to raise, like, any kind of capital.
Yeah, so it's actually quite impressive that he was able to raise that much. No shade to France, but it's a lot of money.
Of course.
But I was going to bring up the $1 billion in fundraising.
I know. That's quite a lot. And they've made really good penetration. This reminds me a little bit, just on that side of it, of when we had Thumbtack on. And Thumbtack has raised so much money. And they were like, oh yeah, like our market share is essentially tiny because that's just like how big this market is. And Thibaud was talking about, he was like, yeah, like we've been able to grow to this size. And like, of course, people buy refurbished goods from brands themselves and stores and eBay. And it's like the penetration is still so small for buying tech like this. It is interesting to think of, like, if you're this well capitalized and that's where you are in the growth journey, like where it actually does go from here.
Yeah, because what do you do with $1 billion in fundraising when you are kind of a refurbished marketplace? Like, what do you do?
No, I definitely wish we got a little more clarity on that. Well, we kind of tried to ask. We didn't really find out. It sounds like they either contract their refurbishers or I don't know if they have anyone like actually in-house or if they just have like long-standing contracts.
Yeah, because $1 billion that's a lot of money.
Packaging costs money.
Yeah,
That is a lot of money.
Yeah, because I'm like in New York, you could just go to a store here or something. But do these corner markets need $1 billion? It's a lot, but
yeah.
Hey.
No, it is a lot. I feel like it taps into what Hugh is saying about the trust aspect, where it's like, sure, you can buy these things anywhere in theory, but the reason people buy them from BackMarket and the reason they like buy them from BackMarket and then come back to BackMarket to buy more is that trust element and the fact that like they come with that stamp of approval that, say, the corner store down the street from me doesn't. Although I say they did fix my screen and it worked perfectly until I bought a new phone years later. So that's also part of it.
Yeah, there's definitely a growing market for refurbished items. And I thought it was really interesting in hearing that yet another thing that we all love is poisoning us.
I know.
Of course, technology is poisoning our waters. We don't have anything safe in this country, do we?
No, I know. It really, and this comes up in like the fashion conversation about sustainability too. It really just comes down to consuming less. Just at the end of the day, just consuming less, even if it's better for you or better materials, just consuming less is like always the best way to approach it. But even like how these things are made, it's like not great for the environment. Processes, it's the same as like electric cars and batteries, that the transition is not good, like to transition from gas powered cars to batteries, because the batteries require so many rare metals and these materials that are like not environmentally friendly to mine and create and things like that. But once we get there, it'll be better. But talking with him about how bad this is for the environment kind of made me think of that.
Yeah, and I mean, like, correction, it's not necessarily our water, but it is the water of like developing countries and poorer countries, which is also just like in the larger context of the climate discussion, really sad that these countries are carrying the weight of the Western world in terms of all of the terrible things that we're doing. I wanted to ask him, how do you fix that? Like, is this something like legislation that would have to be passed in terms of like getting companies like Apple and all these tech hardware heavy companies to kind of slow down or kind of stop doing what they're doing? Or how do you kind of fix this?
Capitalism, baby. They're not going to do that. I wish. But I mean, like, the thing with this definitely plays a role in it, though, because it's like if more people turn to buying things used than buying things new, companies will have to react by like making less. So it's like, hopefully it's like one of those like trickle down, and not that that worked in the economy, but maybe it'll work here, trickle down effects of like, if consumers stop buying new as much, companies will not need to make new as much. That's why I think I tried to ask him about sort of like the right to repair laws that are changing kind of across the globe, because there's stuff here in the US, and I know it's mainly like state specific so far and things over in Europe, but maybe for listeners who haven't followed this, I only think I've really followed it because we voted on it in New York, I want to say last year or the year before. But like right to repair in this context, it's the same bills that passed a couple decades ago regarding car parts, but it allows you to get real parts from the manufacturer that are correct for your specific device, which prior to these laws being passed, like Apple and Samsung and other phone developers were just like, no, like you cannot access our parts. So if your phone breaks, you want to fix the screen, you can, but you can't fix it with an actual screen from Apple. They didn't allow you to. And these laws are meant in many ways for things like this, in the sense of people should be able to repair their own tech. They should not have to immediately buy new tech if, say, something like if the volume button on your iPhone breaks, Apple just wouldn't send you a new one, even if you asked and knew how to fix it. So they're essentially trying to prompt you to buy new faster. So right to repair definitely can help in that way. Like people can repair on their own. But I think Thibaud is right to say that, sure, I would now have the ability to fix my phone at home, but I wouldn't. And he's right to say that I probably shouldn't either, because I don't understand how any of that works. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of stuff impacts them too.
Oh, wow. See, this is one of those things where I'm like, I had no idea this. I'm such a simple person. Like I have my phone, and then when it stops working, I turn it in and I get a new one. I know nothing about the hardware parts. So I'm like, oh, wow, the right to repair. We should, I guess, have, right? Of course, companies want to entice us to buy more. Wasn't there some kind of pushback on Apple with that? Because they were like releasing a new iPhone every single year and people were like, enough with this.
Oh, I know. No, and they still do. I think it's crazy. The thought that someone gets a new phone every year is insane to me. Like, my phone is over 5 years old, and I recently brought it in and got like the battery and the screen replaced, and like it works great. Why would I buy a new one? I spent like $30 getting it fixed because I had insurance. I guess some people are like that though, in the same way that some people, like I had roommates in college. I was like the only one in our dorm at one point that like didn't have a computer that I had built myself. So I mean, people do like to tinker with stuff like that. So it's like people should be able to if they want to. I won't. But
not me though, but others.
Not me though, but respect it.
It's the right to do so.
Exactly. It's a right I won't be exercising, but I think everyone else should be able to if they want.
Found is hosted by myself, TechCrunch senior reporter Becca Skutak, alongside senior reporter Dominic Midori-Davis. Found is produced by Maggie Stamets with editing by Kel. Our illustrator is Bryce Durbin. Found's audience development and social media is managed by Morgan Little, Alyssa Stringer, and Natalie Kreisman. TechCrunch's audio products are managed by Henry Pickavet. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week.